So I'm Jill Sonke. I'm director of the University of Florida Center for Arts and Medicine. I've been in this position since 1996, and in my role I write a lot of grants. I've written more than 150 grants in my career, and I've garnered over $3 million in funding. So when I teach grant writing, I do it in the context of how to love grant writing. My workshops are called The Zen of Grant Writing or How to Love Grant Writing. I feel that there are a lot of resources out there in the world for learning the technical components of grant writing. I mean, you definitely have to be able to clarify your proposals, goals, your objectives, your methods, the rationale, why it's necessary, what your anticipated outcomes will be, and how what you're going to do is going to change your world, whether that's a big world or a small world that you're trying to impact. So you've got to be compelling and you've got to be technically and structurally adept in order to write grants. But I think those resources are out there. What I try to focus on is how to love it. Number one, so that people will actually sit down and write the grant. I think a lot of people view grant writing like doing taxes. You think of it as federal forms or just a daunting structure that, we want to avoid. And I try to frame it as a creative act. For me, it is a creative act. I feel creative when I'm doing it. And that for me is a lot about how I frame my approach to it. So I set up a comfortable environment, a comfortable scenario. I often write grants at home rather than in the office so that I can sit in my favorite chair and I can have my favorite tea and I can have other things that make me feel good and look out the window or get up and walk when I need to. So I set up an environment in which I can feel creative. And I view it as a creative act, as a form of storytelling, and as a narrative. And I apply a lot of the same ideas that I used as a choreographer. I want to take my audience on a journey. I want to engage them in some way through kind of a personal perspective, narrative, and create a picture, help kind of paint a picture of what I'm talking to them about. And then I want to sort of involve them in my highest level aspiration for doing this work. And then I kind of want to bring them into what's the need, who are we talking about? And then I bring them into how are we going to do this? And in that process of laying out the picture of what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it, I also think of kind of a breathing, sort of, opening out, drilling down, opening down, out, drilling down. Because I know as a grant reviewer, when I'm faced with the stack of 60 grants, the ones that stand out for me are the ones that draw me in so that I feel like I'm just reading a good book. So I feel that while the technical components are critical, you've got to be able to write well and write clearly, that it's a lot more human an experience, an exchange between the grant writer and the grant reviewer than a lot of people think about. So when I'm teaching, I'm reminding people constantly to be thinking of their audience and to be working creatively and artistically to bring those audiences on a journey that brings them inside the program. I have found in the years that I've been grant writing that one of the most critical things for me that allows me to enjoy it a lot more and come back to it is eliminating the stress in the final week before the deadline. In my early years of grant writing, I think I was nauseous for that entire week moving up to the deadline. And so what I learned to do is self-deception. So when I see July 1 as a deadline, I immediately shift that to June 20. So I give myself that 10-day window and I actually believe that deadline. I set it in my head. Subconsciously, I know and feel that there's that 10-day cushion there, and it makes all the difference. I feel a sense of being a bit ahead of the game, if not on track, rather than in a panic as I work up to the deadline and pull the final details together. So that ability to sort of believe my own self-deception makes all the difference. And I actually let everyone know around me, don't ever say July 1. Our deadline is June 20. And when we buy into that together, it makes all the difference, and it just feels magnificent to submit ahead of time. And I also think it makes a difference on how you're perceived. When the reviewers see one that came in 10 days ahead of time, that reflects positively on your organizational capacity. I find it really important to celebrate. Again, just as a way of making sure I come back to do it again. It's a big thing sometimes to write a grant. It is like, birthing something. And if you just kind of close your laptop and go on to your next thing, it's a little anticlimactic. And I feel a little underappreciated, for the big effort that I just made. So I celebrate, I, come into the office and say, I just submitted a grant and I fully expect everyone to cheer, Or I go out to dinner with friends, or I get myself a really nice bar of chocolate, or something like that.